So I must be slipping up in my older age because I did not catch this one of that chapter 2 weeks ago. And I've seen every single one of his videos with the exception of one. And that was one that was out yesterday. Other than that, I'm caught up on all of them, but I did not even see this one that I'm going to play. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, how did it slip past me? I love Mike. I watch all his videos. Look at the notifications on Tuesdays and Thursdays when he does upload. So I'm anxious to find out more about this one, and hope you guys are too. I know a lot of you have left great messages about Mike O, and he's awesome. He's funny. He just has a really cool character. So it's paying off for him little by little. So I'm already going to automatically like it because I'm assuming it's going to be great.
And welcome. My name is Mike, and in this whole video, to set the scene for you, the year it is 2004, and on a bright and sunny November morning, that's oxymoronic, a couple woke up for, yet another day on the rig, another day in paradise. This was in upstate New York, just outside Albany, and up and at 'em that morning was Peter and Joan Porco. Peter was up first, while his beloved wife and mother of his children slept beside him. He rolled out of bed, went to the bathroom, did his business. He checked his face in the mirror, making sure he was looking spick and span. He walked down the stairs of their home. He loaded the dishwasher. He packed his little lunch, for the day ahead. He walked outside to grab the morning newspaper, and then, the big oaf, he realized he locked himself outside, so he got the secret key they hid under the pot. So he let himself back into his own house. He walked into the hallway, and then he keeled over and he died. He keeled over and he died because Peter Porco had taken 16 blows of an axe to his head, which removed part of his skull and his jaw. He had been attacked while he slept, and then he just got up when his alarm went off, and he not a bother on him. Well, not quite, as we can see. So I guess that's intro. Now, let's give the wild story of the Porcos a go. Right outside state capital Albany in uppity New York lies the town of Bethlehem, and it's a lovely little place to live. It's an upscale town, loads of forests, parks, green as all hell. The schools are up, the crime was down, and there's, fewer places that are better to raise a family than the town of Bethlehem, or at least, that's what the Porcos thought, my friends. Peter and Joan Porco had been married for over 30 years by the time our story takes place in 2004, when this was the biggest song, and this was the biggest movie. I wish I was joking.
Shrek 2.
Peter, he worked in law. He had been a public defender before working in private practice, and now he was a law clerk in the appellate division of the Supreme Court of New York State. In addition, he was active in his political party, he was active in his church, as was his wife, Joan. Peter and Joan, they had met at the University of Albany while he was studying the law. She was studying speech therapy, and she would work in a local school. As I said, she too was devoted to their church, but she was even more devoted to her family and her two sons. There was 23-year-old Jonathan Porco. He was a Navy officer down in South Carolina. And then there was 21-year-old Christopher Porco, who was studying economics at the University of Rochester. The Porcos were a happy, successful family living in a nice old place, living the good life. Then it all came crashing down one November morning. On Monday, the 15th of November 2004, the last autumn leaves were clinging on for dear life, and the winter winds, they were fast approaching. A chill, was in the air as the various employees of the New York State Supreme Court Appellate Division were filing in to their office, in central Albany. As the clock went from 9 to the various numbers that follow, people began to notice that the big dog, the well-respected and well-liked Peter Porco, he wasn't in the office that morning. He hadn't called, he hadn't told anybody he wasn't coming in. People were Where's Petey? Eventually, in-person calls were made, including calls to the police when someone went out to that house in Bethlehem and made the gruesome, I think you'd say gruesome, I would say gruesome, discovery. Yeah. Namely, Peter Porco lying in a pool of his own blood just in the hallway of his house. Upstairs in the bed, Joan Porco was the same, covered in blood, just lying there. It quickly became apparent that both Peter and Joan had been brutally attacked while they were sleeping in their own bed. Someone had just came in and laid into them. A firefighter's axe was lying on the bed, like right there, so that's your murder weapon. And it was determined that the murder weapon, that axe, had come from their own house. It was from their own garage. And then, to cap it all off, they could tell from the scene, from the blood trail, from what had been done, from what Peter was wearing, that after being savagely attacked with a goddamn axe, half his skull, missing his brain hanging out, his jaw removed, Peter, in like some amount of major shock, his alarm went off the morning he got up, went to the bathroom, did all the things he would regularly do before he went into work. How? He had done his typical morning routine, leaving a trail of blood everywhere before collapsing stone dead, all the while his brain was hanging out and his jaw was hanging off. Talk about a hangover. As the police were processing this, frankly, shocking scene, I've never heard anything like it anyway, they realized that Joan Porco was still alive. She was able to gesture with her hand. She couldn't speak because, like her husband, someone had taken an axe to her face. But she was still alive, and the police were like, oh, she's effed up. She might not last very long, so we better get some questions out of her real quick. They asked her who did this. She was able to tell them through head nods. There was no sign of forced entry. The murder weapon was their own, and nothing had been stolen even when cash and cards lay out in the open. But the phone line had been cut, as had a screen covering a window. When a Joan whose life was rapidly fading was asked, did a family member do this to you? She gave them the old down up. When asked, was it Jonathan? Left right. When asked, was it Chris? Down up. She was then rushed to hospital, and so the investigation began with a suspect right away. So, the who, or the presumed who. You got it, babe. The how? Easy peasy, he would have had access as it was his family home and the murder weapon was theirs. The why? Well, that was the big question for the Porcos.
You have to be one sick fuck to want to kill your own parents. Either that or greed. It just... Yeah, this is perplexing.
In the meantime, Chris was over 200 miles away at the University of Rochester. The day of the attack, the police didn't even contact him right away. Chris, 200 miles away, he was first contacted by the Times Union, a local paper, asking him for comment, which is kind of weird. Chris then called back. He called the police in Bethlehem asking, the newspaper just told me my parents are dead. Maybe you should have done that first? I don't know.
Hi, my name is Chris Porco. I was just called by the Times Union saying that my parents were found dead this afternoon. I was wondering if you had any information for me.
Hey, Chris, whereabouts are you?
I'm at school in Rochester, New York.
Okay. You're going to go right to Albany Med?
I don't know. I don't even know where my mom is, but...
Yeah, she is at Albany Med.
Okay. Do you know her condition?
No, because I haven't talked to her. Because when you get there, I'll come and see if there's anything I can do for you.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Chris and Jonathan rushed to the hospital to be with their mother, and that's when Joan went under the knife to save her life. Chris was then questioned by the police. He told the police he was in university all night. He never left.
You know, they're communicating. She's saying over there at the house. I don't know why she would say that. She knows what happened. I hope she does. I was not there.
Okay, so you're saying you were over 200 miles away. in university when your mother, who's the victim, one of the victims, is saying, or rather nodding, that you're literally an axe murderer. So could anyone back his story up that he was where he said he was when this horrific incident occurred? Well, he said he was asleep on the couch in the dorm lounge. He was a frat bro. None of the other members, though, of that fraternity could back up that they saw him asleep, you know, with a hearty yes. They said themselves they were in the lounge all night and didn't spot no porky pie over here. But the following morning, when his parents would have been found, he was spotted jogging around campus. People who saw him said he looked like he was just going for a regular morning jog. He was in Grandale form. It's almost a 4-hour drive between Bethlehem and Rochester. The police then seized some of his things. His computer, his big, bright Jeep. Just in case you missed him, he wanted to make sure you saw him. Well, he was seen, or his Jeep was seen at least, on security cameras, leaving Rochester at about 10:30 p.m. the night before the murders on the 14th of November. If he left Rochester at about 10:30 p.m. on the 14th, he would have arrived in the early hours of the 15th.
The Porco family has been fully cooperating with the authorities, and earlier this evening it was reported that there was an imminent arrest of Christopher pending, and that is not true.
Police aren't saying that Chris is a suspect, but a person who possesses relevant information. His Jeep Wrangler was impounded in Rochester Monday night, where Chris is a student, and is now back in the capital region, where forensics experts are examining it.
So now the police began to formulate a timeline of what could have happened. If he left Rochester at about 10:30 p.m., he would have made it in the early morning hours, and he really shouldn't have had such a big, bright, noticeable Jeep, because he was noticed specifically by two toll booth operators who said, yes, I specifically remember that Jeep. It's a big, bright, yellow friggin' thing. Of course I remember it. A neighbor of the Porcos would also say he saw that Jeep parked outside their house at about 4 a.m. when he was out to work. Then a security employee was able to tell the police that the home alarm was disabled at 2:14 a.m. on the 15th. Then it's presumed Chris went into the garage, he grabbed the axe, he walked, crept in terrifying fashion, I can only imagine, up the stairs, walked into his parents' bedroom where they were fast asleep, and then just went to town on them. Less than 3 hours later, the phone line was cut. Then he drove back to Rochester and went for a run to make sure he was seen. That is what could have happened. Anyway, it was over a year later, in November 2005, that he was arrested and charged with the murder of Peter Porco and the attempted murder of Joan. When confronted with the CCTV of him driving off campus, he said he was just moving his car, but he didn't leave town, and that's why his frat bros didn't see him. When he came back, they were asleep. So it kind of seems pretty clear-cut, but at the same time it was all circumstantial. There was no direct evidence tying Chris to the attacks on his parents. The pieces, though, they fit together. And remember, his own mother, one of the victims, said she saw him. She saw him. Or did she? Joan Porco, she would make a full recovery. Wow. If that counts, now that she was missing one of her eyes and part of her skull. But now she was saying she couldn't remember anything of the attack, or of that night at all. And her son couldn't have done this. She was now saying Chris was innocent. She wrote a letter to the local paper. On November 15th, 2004, my world tragically changed. The happy life that my beloved husband Peter and our sons, Jonathan and Christopher, had was lost forever. I want to say unequivocally that, although I have no memory whatsoever of the attack, either because I was asleep or because of my injuries, I am absolutely positive that my son was in no way involved in this heinous crime. I implore the Bethlehem Police and the District Attorney's Office to leave my son alone and to search for Peter's real killer or killers. After he was arrested, Chris swiftly made bail, as friends and family circled the wagons around him, paying the substantial amount so he could be out of there. They all believed he was innocent, as did his mother, Joan. Awkward is an understatement. But could Christopher have done this? Well, yes is the answer to that one. Yes, he could have. But did he? Well, nothing of his was found, unlike the murder weapon or anything like that, and a lone fingerprint was found near the cut telephone cord that didn't match any of the Porcos or anybody who lived around there or even worked on the phone lines. So some believe that could be the killer's fingerprint. But I mean, it also could be anyone's, so. Also, the screen was cut, which, I mean, the police believe that was Chris trying to make it look like a burglary. But maybe it was actually cut. Like, for real, to get in. The police immediately rushed and pointed the finger at Chris on the word of a woman who had just been brutally attacked with an axe. I mean, who knows? She probably didn't even know what planet she was on. You know what I mean? Who knows what was going through her mind? Her husband had just gotten up with half his head chopped off, like it was a normal morning. Also, this was like a gruesome, really gruesome scene, as you can see. Chris's Jeep was thoroughly searched. I mean, from top to bottom. Nothing was found in it. No blood, no nothing. And I mean, he must have been drenched. Now, listen to this. A few weeks before the attack, Joan had reportedly told friends that one day she saw someone in her backyard and it creeped the shite out of her. She didn't know who it was, some stranger just hanging in her backyard. The house had also been burgled not too long before. Okay, so that's me playing devil's advocate on that whole part, because I never told you, we never got to the why of why Chris could have and would have done this. Let's. Okay, well, so that burglary I literally just mentioned a couple of seconds ago, that was found to have been Chris. He burgled his own parents' house, stole some, like, Macs and laptops and sold them. So, case closed. He, in fact, was not getting on well with his parents. Like, at all. I mean, to other family members and to friends, he seemed like this, just nice kid, got on kind of well with everybody. He always told people he had loads of money, even though his parents weren't really particularly well off. But yeah, he did not get on well with his parents, like at all. Let me get into that. In the spring semester before the attacks, Chris dropped out of the University of Rochester due to failing grades. He reapplied to get back in the autumn semester, and he needed a loan to do so. He needed about 32 grand, I think it was. The kicker was he applied for that $32,000 loan in his father's name using his father's social security number. It seems his parents weren't too keen on supporting him anymore, and so he just did so in their name then. He stole stuff, as I said already. He would forge his college transcripts to make it seem like he was doing a lot better in school than he actually was. He would hole his parents with lies, like true and true. He was telling porcupines.
Your parents were upset. Without a doubt, they were very upset. Your father says things were spinning out of control for you. Mm-hmm. And if you ever forged his name to another credit document, he was going to turn you into place for forgery.
Peter and Joan were very worried about him by the way he wasn't communicating with them. He was basically just lying about every single thing that was going on in his life. He was lying to his girlfriend, he was lying to his friends. He was lying about everything, apparently to the point that Joan told Chris she thought his dad, Peter, was about to have a nervous breakdown. Allegedly, a few weeks before the murders, Peter told a co-worker he believed his son was a sociopath. And so the motive could have been quite simply inheritance. He messed up by not finishing off his mother, because if he had done so and gotten away with it, he would have gotten a cool, crisp $1 million.
It's a question that people would want me to ask you directly. Did you drive over to your parents' house, go up into their bedroom, attack them with an axe, killing your father, and gravely wounding your mother?
I can't say it enough that absolutely no. I would never do anything like that to anyone, let alone my parents, who I love dearly.
The trial began in June 2006, and it lasted over a month. Joan Porco would take the stand defending her son. At the end, Christopher Porco was found guilty of second-degree murder and attempted murder. He was sentenced to 50 years to life on each count.
Wow.
And so he is now in prison, where he will be for the next 30 years, at minimum 30 years. He can apply for parole in 2052, so look forward to that. Crazy one, taking an axe to your parents, and then Mama defended him. To the point that she even wrote a letter to the newspaper saying, "Leave him alone!" Well, perhaps he should have taken her advice and left them alone. Chris sucked. His parents gave him everything, and he just wanted more and more. He appealed, all exhausted, with no change.
Convicted killer Chris Porco lost his latest attempt to get out of prison. Porco is behind bars for murdering his father and trying to kill his mother in an attack in the family's Bethlehem home back in 2004. The case, as you may recall, made headlines around the country, was also the subject of a made-for-TV movie. Porco claimed he was the victim of an ineffective defense team, but it's not an argument the appellate division bought into.
He also tried to block the release of a Lifetime movie about his story. Wampano, it didn't work, and it was released.
We're talking about Chris Porco here. His lawsuit claimed that the 2013 movie misrepresented his life and that it violated his civil rights, since Lifetime profited from it. Lifetime argued that Porco's rights were not violated and that they always presented the movie as entertainment that was only based on a true story.
Haven't seen it, but it sounds like shite, so it might have been better if you won.
Saturday.
Who did this to you? Was it Christopher?
The true story that everyone is talking about.
And so that wraps this one up. The story of an axe-murdering kid who, tried to murder his parents who did everything for him. Even after he took an axe to their head, they were still doing everything for him. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate doing so and being here with Misha. Sinead, right, that means a lot. Here, thank you again. And you know what? I'll see you real soon in the next Soul video, which should be probably in a couple of days. So, hope you look forward to that. But until then, please, just take care of each other and yourselves, because you know that I love you. Mike out.
Wow, I'm speechless throughout the whole video. How can somebody do that to their own parents? I cannot fathom that. That is just so nuts. I mean, yeah, granted, a lot of it sounded like circumstantial, but wow, that's just nuts to me. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the videos tonight. I'll drop a couple more in the next few days, but until that time, hope you guys are doing well. Wish you guys a good rest of your week. Hopefully it goes by fast. And until next time, peace.